When Vivian Keller received the letter summoning her back to Marrow Hill, her late grandfather's estate tucked away in the misty outskirts of Maine, she had just finalized her divorce and quit her job in Boston. The timing felt eerie, like the house had been watching and waiting. The envelope bore no return, addressed only a wax seal stamped with the family crest she barely remembered, an oak tree split down the center. Inside, the message was curt. "The house is yours now. But it won't stay silent. Come quickly." HB. HB stood for Henry Baines, her grandfather's longtime solicitor and estate manager. He had once been a cold but steady presence in her childhood summers at the mansion. Vivian hadn't been back since she was 17. Still, she went. The drive took her through half-frozen forests and old colonial roads. As her rented Jeep curved up the long gravel path leading to Marrow Hill, memories stirred. The scent of wild roses that once climbed the garden wall, the shriek of gulls by the northern cliffs, the way her grandmother's music box played through the halls at night. But now the house loomed differently. 3 stories of faded gray stone and black shutters, its roofline jagged with decay. The windows, once lanterns of warmth, were dark eyes watching. Ivy crept across the facade like veins over dead skin. Henry greeted her at the door. Thinner, paler, but unmistakably the same. "You look like your mother," he said. Vivian offered a stiff nod. "You said the house is mine." "It is. But it's not a gift. It's a responsibility." "Come in." Inside, dust coated every surface. Chandeliers wept cobwebs. Portraits hung askew. Yet the house was warm as if it had been expecting her. Henry led her to the study, where a single folder sat atop the desk. Inside were legal documents, the deed, a faded family tree, and a note scrawled in her grandfather's hand. "If you're reading this, then the worst has not happened. But danger always returns to this place. There is something buried beneath this house that the bloodline keeps locked. And you are the last Keller." Vivian stared at the words. "What does this mean?" Henry hesitated. "Your grandfather spent his final years obsessed with an inheritance not of money, but of memory. Secrets. I don't know the whole of it, but he insisted someone of Keller blood must always hold the house, or it shifts." "Shifts?" Henry poured them both tea, hands trembling. "Rooms change, doors vanish, voices echo. When a stranger holds the deed, the house defends itself." Vivian almost laughed until she remembered the stories. Rooms that appeared only on certain nights. Locked doors in the cellar that no key opened. Her Aunt Elise disappearing in 1986. The police never found a body. "You're serious," she whispered. He nodded. "This place is not haunted. It is alive. And it remembers who belongs." That night, Vivian unpacked what little she brought into her old bedroom. The wallpaper had peeled. The mirror was cracked. But her grandmother's perfume lingered faintly in the sheets. She lit a fire. Outside, wind scraped against the shutters like nails. She drank the tea Henry had left her and drifted into uneasy sleep. At 3:06 a.m., the music box played. Not from the hallway, from inside her closet. She woke, heart pounding, tiptoed to the door and pulled it open. Empty. But on the floor, resting atop a velvet cushion, was the music box. Its lid open, spinning. And carved inside it, where no mark had been before, were 4 words: "Find what they buried." Vivian snapped the lid shut. The house had begun speaking, and it wasn't done yet. The next morning, Vivian roamed the hallways. She followed faint drafts, slight shifts in temperature. Each portrait she passed seemed to whisper disapproval. At one point, she stood before a painting of her grandmother, Celeste Keller, and felt the overwhelming urge to apologize. Down in the library, a row of books had been pulled from the shelf, spines out, forming a jagged stair-step pattern. She traced her fingers along them. The House of the Seven Gables, the yellow wallpaper, the turn of the screw, all stories about women in haunted spaces. Was the house trying to show her something? Or was it simply reflecting her state of mind? She didn't know, but she kept searching. In the cellar, she found a locked door she didn't remember. The hinges were rusted, but the lock was new, modern, out of place. She jotted the detail down in a notepad she now carried constantly. Henry watched her from the top of the steps. "You're following it, aren't you?" he asked. She nodded. "You knew this would happen." "It always does," he said. "The house doesn't let secrets lie." "What did they bury, Henry?" He didn't answer, just walked away, his footsteps vanishing into the wood like a sigh. That night, the music box played again. This time, not from the closet. From the wall. Vivian pressed her ear to the paneling beside her bed. Faint ticking, a chime. Then a voice her grandmother's, soft and sad. "I didn't want her to know." Vivian backed away, heart in her throat. She wasn't just remembering Marrow Hill anymore. It was remembering her back. Vivian awoke the next morning to a crisp silence. The kind that didn't feel peaceful, just vacant. The kind of silence that had weight. She brewed herself coffee in the kitchen. The stove hissed reluctantly, the old copper kettle whistling like a warble in its throat. Henry was gone. A note on the table, in his tight script. "Gone to town for supplies. Be cautious. HB." She didn't like the way he signed his initials like a warning, as if he knew more would happen before he returned. Vivian wandered back to the east wing, to the wall that had spoken the night before. Her fingers brushed the floral wallpaper, which peeled slightly near the seam. With the edge of a nail, she pulled, revealing dark wood beneath, smooth, but cracked in places. She tapped lightly. Hollow. It was a false wall. She fetched a fireplace poker from the study and pressed it between the seams. It groaned. Dust fell in gentle clouds. A narrow opening appeared, and behind it, blackness. A room that wasn't in any floor plan. She stood there a full minute before stepping inside. It wasn't large. Maybe 10 by 10 feet. The floor was concrete. The walls, unfinished brick. One shelf lined with leather-bound books that crumbled when she touched them. In the corner, a wooden chair sat facing the wall, and above it, scratched into brick, were the words, "What she saw, they buried." Vivian turned and spotted an oil painting covered with a linen shroud. She pulled it away carefully. Her breath caught. It was a portrait of a girl. Young, no older than 12. Eyes wide. Mouth stitched shut. The Keller bone structure was unmistakable, and beneath the canvas, a nameplate, Élise. 1973. Aunt Élise. The one who vanished. Vivian reeled back. She hadn't thought of her in years. No one in the family spoke of her after she disappeared. Her mother called it the year we stopped singing. There had never been a funeral. She backed out of the room and resealed the wall as best she could. Her hands trembled. Heart pounding. Was Elise still here, or part of her? She stumbled into the hallway, where a gust of cold met her. A door that had been closed now stood ajar. The parlor. Inside, an old record spun, though no one had touched the phonograph in decades. A song filtered through the room. Soft. Childlike. The ash tree's roots go down, 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 into the blood-soaked ground. Vivian turned it off. The silence after was louder than the music. Henry returned just before sunset. Vivian met him at the door, the portrait in her hands. "Tell me everything." He paused. "Where did you find that?" "In a hidden room behind the east wing wall." He stared at the painting, as though it might lunge at him. "Elise wasn't just your aunt," he said. "She was the seer." Vivian frowned. "What?" "She was born, touched. Sensitive to the house. Too sensitive. Your grandmother tried to hide it, but Elise saw things no child should. She said the house whispered its truths to her. She disappeared." "No," Henry said. "She was taken. Or gave herself to it. We never found her." Just that painting. And the wall sealed behind her bedroom. Why didn't anyone tell me? He sighed. Because after your mother left, the family fractured. Your grandfather never spoke of Elise again. Celeste, your grandmother, went quiet. And the house slept. Vivian looked again at the stitched mouth on the portrait. She tried to speak. Yes, she still might. Henry paled. Don't let the house pull you under, Vivian. It always starts with a whisper. Then a dream. Then it makes you believe you belong to it. Vivian didn't reply. But that night, as she sat by the fire reading Elise's journal found hidden behind the loose brick in the secret room, she heard it again. A voice, small, familiar. Vivian, listen. They lied. She didn't run. She listened. Because she needed the truth. And she wasn't afraid anymore. Morning arrived with a strange hush. The wind had stilled. The crows that usually cried from the black oaks out back were eerily silent. Even the pipes in the old manor didn't groan the way they usually did. Vivian stood at the top of the stairs, Elise's journal in her hand, feeling like she was being watched. The journal entries were fragmented, scribbled. Some words crossed out, pages torn. Others appeared soaked through by old tiercer, something darker. They told me not to speak. But the house listens, even when no one else will. He's in the cellar. I see him through the walls. Grandfather says I'm imagining again. But the house says I'm right. If I go missing, it's because I followed the knocking. I had to know who was calling my name. The cellar. Vivian hadn't gone down there yet. Not all the way. She'd only seen the locked door behind the wine racks. A door with a newer lock. A place her grandfather had clearly sealed off. She dressed, tucked the journal under her arm, and made her way down. The cellar stairs creaked with every step. Moisture clung to the walls. The air smelled of rot and earth. As she reached the bottom, the pull of the house grew stronger. There it was, the steel-bolted door, its surface scratched. Vivian hesitated before stepping forward. Just as her hand touched the knob, 3 soft knocks sounded from the other side. Knock, knock, knock. Her blood iced. Then, a whisper low and desperate. Vivian. She stumbled back. Henry's voice called from above. Vivian? She ran up the stairs. He stood at the kitchen sink, his coat dripping from a sudden storm outside. What were you doing down there? I heard her. Behind the door. She's calling to me. Henry grew pale. Don't answer. Whatever you heardn't speak back. That's how it pulls you in. But Elise might still be. She's not. Not as you remember. Not as she was. Vivian slammed the journal on the table. Then what is she? Henry didn't answer. He just poured himself whiskey at 11 a.m. and sat in silence. That night, Vivian locked herself in the study. The storm continued outside, fierce and relentless. Thunder rumbled deep in the bones of the house. She lit every candle she could find, sat in the middle of the room, and reread the journal. One page caught her eye. It looked like it had been added later. Different ink. Cleaner handwriting. Vivian, if this finds you, I'm sorry. I should have run when I had the chance. But the house promised me answers. And I was too curious to let go. I only hope you're smarter than me. There was no signature, but she knew it was Elise. Suddenly, the fireplace flared. A burst of flame and then smoke. Thick. Black. Letters appeared across the sooty glass of the fireplace's mirror-like paneling. The truth is buried under roots. Roots. Vivian remembered the song. The ash tree's roots go down, down, down. She grabbed a flashlight and her coat and stepped into the storm. The ash tree stood at the back of the estate, tall, skeletal in the lightning. Its bark was riddled with carvings, dates, initials, family marks. She dug beneath the base with her hands. Mud soaked her sleeves. Her breath came in clouds. After 10 minutes, her fingers struck something solid. Wood. She cleared more. It was a box, small, ornate, locked. She pried it open with a nearby rock. Inside was a necklace, a locket, and a single piece of paper folded neatly. "This is the key. Speak her name. Let the walls fall." The wind howled louder now. The lightning cracked. The house loomed behind her like a predator. Vivian held the locket tightly and whispered, "Elise Keller." The ground trembled beneath her feet. And far beneath the cellar, a second door began to open. The rumble beneath her feet was not just imagined. Vivian fell back into the wet earth, breath catching as a deep, subterranean grinding sound groaned from the direction of the manor. A slow, deliberate shifting like gears waking after years of disuse. She stumbled to her feet, the locket still clutched in her palm. The paper inside her coat pocket fluttered in the wind like a warning banner. Lightning split the sky again, illuminating the manor's dark windows except one, in the east wing, now faintly glowing red. The second door, whatever it was, had awakened. Vivian burst through the side entrance of the manor, tracking mud through the corridor. Her breath was ragged. Every light flickered as she passed. The house groaned, its floorboards warping beneath her feet. In the cellar, Henry waited. He stood by the wine rack, lantern in hand. His face was pale, jaw tight. "You felt it too?" she asked. He nodded slowly. The door opened. They approached it together. The new door wasn't visible yet, but something had changed. The air was different. Damp, but charged, like ozone before a strike. Vivian swept aside the rack. Behind the concrete wall, a hairline crack pulsed with faint red light. "There's no handle," she whispered. Henry handed her the locket. "Try it." She pressed it to the crack. A faint click. Then the wall parted like theater curtains, revealing a spiral staircase descending into darkness. They didn't speak as they descended. Only the sound of their footsteps and the flicker of the lantern filled the narrow shaft. The walls were brick, but older than the rest of the house. Pre-foundation, maybe even colonial. Symbols lined them carvings like wards or warnings. At the bottom, they reached a chamber. A circle, stone floor. 6 doors evenly spaced. No hinges, no knobs. In the center, a well. Its mouth lined with iron. Runes were etched in the stone surrounding it. All were Keller names, and in the middle lone name glowed faintly red. Elise Keller. Vivian stepped forward. The lantern flickered. Then a voice echoed. "You opened the path." Vivian spun. No one was there. Henry moved beside her, hand shaking. "The house remembers the bloodline. It lets us pass when we speak true. But where is Elise?" "Gone," he said. "But also, not." Vivian knelt beside the well, peered down. Nothing. Just darkness. But the air rising from it felt warm. She looked to Henry. "What did they do to her?" He sat. Hard. Against the wall. She was supposed to be the last. She knew too much, saw too much. The others, they tried to contain it. They buried her voice. Not her body, her truth. Vivian reached into her coat. Pulled out the journal. "If I go missing, it's because I followed the knocking." She flipped the pages. Found the final entry. "The circle must be broken. The names unsealed, or the house will keep us forever." Vivian stood. One by one, she moved to each door. At each one, she whispered the name written on the frame. Josephine Keller, Harold Keller, Annalisa Keller, Thomas Keller, Celeste Keller, and finally, Elise Keller. The red glow vanished. The room trembled. The well cracked open, and a soft cry rose from its depths. Not a scream. A song. Down, down, down. Vivian looked to Henry. He gave her a grim smile. "It wants you to listen." She stepped to the edge. And listened. The song rose up from the well like mist. Faint at first. Childlike. But the longer Vivian stood at the edge, the more it sharpened, twisting into a harmony no human voice should shape. Her skin prickled. The locket on her chest grew hot. Henry's lantern dimmed, sputtering. She knelt at the edge of the well and reached down. A draft met her hand, warm and pulling, as though something deep below recognized her. The rope ladder bolted to the well wall, appeared only after she whispered Elise's name again. Henry grabbed her arm. "You don't have to." "I do," she said. "She wants to be found." And before he could stop her, Vivian began to climb. The descent was slow. The air thickened with each rung. Walls narrowed, the stone moist and slick. When she reached the bottom, the air shifted warmer, denser. She landed on packed soil. A chamber stretched before her, uneven and pulsing with faint red light. Runes along the walls glowed as she moved. At the far end of the room, a mirror. Not an ordinary mirror. This one rippled like water. In its surface, a reflection formed not hers. Elise. She looked no older than the portrait. Her eyes were wide and shimmering, lips moving silently. Vivian stepped forward. "Elise?" The girl raised her hand, palm open, pointing behind Vivian. Vivian turned slowly. The wall behind her had transformed. No longer brick, but papered and painted. The nursery. She stood in a replica of the East Wing's old children's room. But no toys lined the shelves. No warmth in the crib. Only a single rocking chair, slowly creaking back and forth. The inner voice. She warned them. They didn't listen. So she buried it all. The voice was old. Worn. But not malevolent. The mirror behind her shattered with a soft sigh. In its place, a tunnel. Vivian took a breath and walked forward. Inside the tunnel, old memories whispered. Her mother's voice. Her grandfather's cough. Elise's laughter. Images danced across the walls, fragments of Keller history. A birth. A burning of records. A child screaming as a journal was ripped from her hands. Vivian reached the end of the tunnel. There, in a stone alcove, sat a wooden box. No lock, no inscription. But she knew what it was. She opened it. Inside. Elise's missing pages. The full journal. She sat, heart thudding, and began to read. They said I saw too much. But the house showed me everything. It showed me who it hurt. And who helped it hurt. I screamed. I warned them. So they sealed me here. But the house and E were one now. I only want to be remembered. Vivian shut the book gently. I remember, she whispered. The room shifted. The ground trembled. Behind her, the mirror reformed, not rippling, but solid. This time, Elise was crying. Not sad. Relieved. Then the house spoke. A great, deep exhala. The cycle breaks when the blood speaks truth. Vivian stood. Elise, she said. You are not forgotten. The walls brightened. A warm light poured in from above. The rope ladder hung down again. Vivian looked once more at the reflection. Elise nodded, just once, and then faded. Vivian climbed. When she emerged into the stone chamber, Henry waited. He looked 10 years older. She spoke to me, she said. She always did if someone listened. Vivian held up the restored journal. It's all here. The whole story. The truth they tried to bury. Henry touched the cover reverently. You're the first to come back from below. I won't be the last, Vivian said, because now the house was awake. But no longer angry. It was waiting. Vivian didn't sleep that night. Not because of fear, but because of clarity. For the first time since stepping into Marrow Hill, she felt aligned with its pulse rather than in conflict with it. She sat in the parlor where the portrait of Elise once hung. Now, a mirror stood in its play zone that showed only truth, not appearances. She placed Elise's journal on the table and began copying passages, as if transcribing sacred text. Her fingers ached, but she didn't stop. Not until dawn brushed the curtains with a thin veil of light. Henry joined her quietly. He'd made coffee. He said nothing as he handed her a cup. Then, he slid a small, leather-bound folder across the table. What's this? Vivian asked. My family's confession, he said. We kept it hidden. All of us. Each generation added a page. Now it's yours. She opened the folder. Dozens of handwritten pages. Some dated as far back as 1,893. All of them short. But each an echo of guilt. I saw Elise crying in the cellar and walked away. We burned the records to protect the family name. We told her the house lied. But it never did. We did. Vivian read each one. Her hands trembled as the truth assembled itself in her mind like puzzle pieces clicking into place. "It's time people knew," she said. Henry nodded. "Then let's begin." In the weeks that followed, the manor transformed. Not physically, though. Windows were finally cleaned, and long-sealed rooms opened but in tone. The air lightened. The silence softened. The house no longer watched her with suspicion, but with quiet companionship. Vivian invited archivists to document the estate. Historians came. Writers? Paranormal researchers? All curious, but no one found what she had found. Because what she found wasn't hidden in walls or under floorsit, was written in forgotten voices. And she gave them back. On the 13th of September, the day Elise had disappeared decades ago, Vivian hosted a gathering. Neighbors, scholars, former family members. She stood in the great hall holding the journal. "There was a girl named Elise," she began. "And she saw too much. She saw truth others were too afraid to speak. And for that, they sealed her away not just in space, but in memory." She read the first entry aloud. Then the last. When she was done, the silence was heavy, but not uncomfortable. It was a silence of mourning and of healing. Later that evening, as dusk turned to night, Vivian walked alone into the east wing. The nursery door was open. Inside, the rocking chair no longer creaked. The air smelled of lilac, her mother's favorite, a final gift. Vivian whispered, "Thank you." She didn't expect a reply. But as she turned to leave, the mirror on the opposite wall shimmered once. Elise's reflection smiled, then vanished. Vivian never left Marrow Hill. Not because she couldn't, but because she chose not to. The house had kept its memories hidden for a century. Now it remembered. Fully. And so did she. In time, Vivian became its caretaker, its historian, and its final judge. But not its prisoner. Never again.